Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Singh Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.
We now know who will face Bruce Rauner in November's Illinois gubernatorial election. My one-on-one interview with J.B. Pritzker and getting more veterans into the job market, what they need to do and what employers should do in the cities. It may be one of the great untapped resources in America's job pool, but getting veterans and employers together can be a difficult task. We'll tell you one way it's being made easier here at home. That's just ahead. But first, the votes have been counted. Republicans have picked billionaire Bruce Rauner to run for governor. Democrats have picked billionaire J.B. Pritzker for a run for the governor as well. But that may be where the similarities end. We got a chance to sit down with the new Democratic nominee when he stopped in the Quad Cities before this week's Illinois primary. We talked to J.B. Pritzker about his critics, his agenda, and his campaign to win in November. As you know, we have a businessman president, a businessman governor right now. You would think Democrats in Illinois might be a little leery of having a Democratic businessman as candidate and governor. What do you say to that?
Well, both of them are failures. There's no doubt about that. Donald Trump and Bruce Rauner, two of a kind. I'm quite different than both of them. I'm really nothing like them. I've spent a lifetime focused on economic justice and social justice. As you know, I've expanded school breakfasts in the state of Illinois for 230,000 people. That was about policy. There was a federal grant program that I helped to expand across the state of Illinois so that in low-income districts, kids could get school breakfast, kids who otherwise weren't getting breakfast at all. I've also worked for 20 years as a national advocate for early childhood education. So now kids in Illinois, thousands of them, get quality preschool and quality childcare because of the work that I've done. I ran the Illinois Human Rights Commission, which is the state's civil rights court. I helped to build a museum that now teaches 60,000 kids across the state of Illinois to fight bigotry and hatred and intolerance. And then finally, I've created thousands and thousands of jobs in a nonprofit small business incubator and in my own business. So all of these things together, they add up to the important issues I think that people care about in the state of Illinois, about education, job creation. Believe that we've got to expand healthcare in the state and make it universal. But I've got a lot of different priorities than the current governor, and I think he's a completely failed governor, Bruce Rauner.
The point could be that we almost need a savvy politician to deal with the savvy politicians that are running the legislature. We've heard time and time again, especially on the western side of the state, Mike Madigan bad. Democrats are bad, too close to Mike Madigan. How are you going to show independence there?
Well, let's start with, I think you need a governor who's gotten big things done to show that they can get big things done when they're governor. And I told you about many of the things that I've focused on, and hundreds of thousands of people have benefited from the work that I've done all across the state, and that's about changing policy, making people's lives better. Look, I'm somebody who's been independent in doing all those things, and I'll remain independent when I'm a governor. I do believe that you've got to work with the legislators in Springfield, all of them, Republicans and Democrats, to get things done. That's something this governor's been unwilling to do. You've seen that he's unwilling to sit down with people of the other party to try to work out a budget, and so we had crisis after crisis in the state, 2 years and 6 days without a budget, because he just didn't want to compromise. And unfortunately for him, it requires sometimes that you sit down and compromise. I'm sure you and many of the people who are watching have had to sit down with somebody they didn't like or didn't agree with and had to get something done with them. And that's just the job of a governor sometimes. You've got to work it out. And this one's been unwilling, and frankly, he's just got to go.
You're being criticized for being too close to Speaker Madigan right now, not even calling out quick enough the sexual harassment issues that are facing him in his campaign office. What do you say to that? I mean, this is like, if this is part of the campaign, how strong do you have to be to position yourself right now against Speaker Madigan if you're not going to be that strong as governor after you're elected?
Well, I've been independent my whole life. I said that to you earlier, and to be clear, my opponents are the ones who are saying these things because they have nothing else to say. The truth of the matter is that I think that when you get elected, You've got to go and work with whoever the Speaker of the House is. It could end up being a Republican, Jim Durkin, or the President of the Senate could end up being a Republican, Bill Brady. And as a Democratic governor, you'd have to work it out with them. So whoever it is, and you don't get to choose when you're governor who the Speaker of the House is. You just get the Speaker of the House on the other side of the table. And in this case, I disagree with the Speaker on a number of things. For example, I think there should be leadership term limits. I'm pretty sure the Speaker of the House disagrees with me about that. I think that we should have independent maps in the state so that voters have more competitive elections to choose people in. I'm pretty sure the Speaker of the House disagrees with me about that. But here's one thing I really know, and that is that unlike Bruce Rauner, I'm going to go to Springfield and I'm going to work with whoever the leadership is to get big things done for the people of Illinois. We've got to focus on jobs and education and health care, and that's something that Bruce Rauner hasn't done, something I will do.
Television ads are really running this campaign right now. You've sent out a series of ads showing your accomplishments and that you're a nice guy. And now the current governor is running ads in regards to your link to Rod Blagojevich. These are damning ads. Do you have a problem with your relationship with the former governor that you're not proud of today?
Well, ask yourself, why do you think the current Republican governor is running ads against a Democrat in a Democratic primary, and only one Democrat, not all of them, just one? Why do you think that is? And it's because he knows he can't beat me in a general election, so he's trying to engage himself in a Democratic primary, invade our primary, to beat me in the Democratic primary. It's not working. And truly, it's just politics, more politics. I believe that we've got to focus on the issues that are important for the state of Illinois. As you know, I've got real experience getting things done for people. And so I think that's a real threat to Bruce Rauner in the general election because he's gotten nothing done for the people of Illinois.
But the issue of your link to Rod Blagojevich may give a lot of Democrats pause.
Well, you've heard me talk about this. I think it's important to recognize that the call that I had with Governor Blagojevich was about recommending to him someone I think is a real statesman, that's Secretary of State Jesse White, to become the United States Senator to replace Barack Obama when he became president. And while I made some mistakes on that call and I didn't push back on the governor enough about things that he said, my intentions were good, but I was wrong on the call. And when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong and I take responsibility for it. But I've spent decades now working with the African American community alongside them to get these things done, to create jobs, to get kids school breakfast, to get early childhood education for them, to fight to get people out of prison who've been wrongfully convicted. And so many people in the African American community know me and know the work that I've done, the decades of work. I think these are just political attacks on me at this point. I think people should look beyond the political attacks and instead look at the real record that I've amassed doing big things for people across the state, and particularly for people of color.
Job one for Illinois and for the governor, of course, is the budget. And you have pointed out, of course, that Governor Rauner has not submitted a balanced budget as is demanded by the Constitution. Let's be honest, a balanced budget really is depending upon accounting. I mean, you can call one balanced and you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Mm-hmm. What do you see as the key as far as having a balanced budget for Illinois, as far as your presentation would be?
Well, you're right. There really hasn't been a balanced budget. And remember, over the last 4 years of budget proposals, I guess, by this governor, he hasn't actually lived up to his constitutional obligation to propose a balanced budget. Still hasn't done that 4 years in a row. This is his last budget address that he just gave because he's going to be out of office at the end of this year. We need an actual budget that covers the priorities that we have for the state of Illinois. And that means making sure that we change the tax system to lower the tax burden on those in the middle class and those striving to get there, and raise the burden on people who can most afford to pay it. And that's
so the
wealthier people. We need a progressive income tax system.
And the tax increase that we saw in 2017, and the tax increase that we saw that was there for 5 years to try to pay off some of these debts, are these things that you want to revisit? Do you want to eliminate this? Do you think an increase in taxes is the way to go, or is it all cutting the fat from the budget right now?
We've got to look on the tax burden. We've got to look at the burden upon the middle class and those striving to get there. Every time they go and raise taxes, it affects the middle class and those who are striving to get there more than it does anybody else. So that's what we've got to alleviate the burden on. We need to lower local property taxes because they're so regressive. Now, we have a problem in this state. In the average state in the United States, half the cost of education is paid for by the state and half by local property taxes. Not in Illinois. A quarter of the cost of education comes from the state and 3/4 is on local property taxes. So if we can just even it out more and put more onto the state level and have a progressive income tax at the state level, those who can most afford will be the ones who step up to the plate. And at the local property tax level, we can lower people's local property taxes. It is so regressive that in poor neighborhoods, they're paying actually the highest rates of property taxes, and in wealthy neighborhoods, they're paying the lowest rates of property taxes. That's not fair.
Democrats have had a Democratic governor and supermajorities. Why has this not been done before then?
Well, it's a good question. It's because it requires leadership. And we haven't had much of that in Springfield. In my opinion, if you run on an issue like progressive income tax and like lowering the tax burden on middle income taxpayers, you can actually get something done when you get elected, but you've got to run on it. You've got to be very explicit about it. And I have been during this campaign. Now, I don't think this is, if you want to increase revenues or pay for the priorities of the state, it isn't just about the income tax. I want to point out that there are ways in which we can lower the expenditures of the state. If you make the right investments, I've spent more than 20 years in the early childhood arena. Let me tell you something. 25% of kids show up at kindergarten not ready to learn, and many of them never really catch up. We spend a lot of money in the system to try to help them catch up, and we should. But if we can prepare them for kindergarten by investing just a little bit of money, in preschool and childcare, so it's quality. When they show up at kindergarten, they are ready to learn, and then it saves the state a lot of money. The same thing is true in the Medicaid system. Mm-hmm. If you can prevent people from getting type 2 diabetes, if we can put some money into prevention, for example, we lower the cost of Medicaid for everybody, for all the taxpayers. And then finally, I think that we should legalize marijuana and tax it, and that's $350 to $700 million of revenue for the state. It also, frankly, it's a racial justice issue and a safety issue. And I think if we legalize recreational marijuana, tax it and regulate it, that we'll all be better off.
Does that come at a right time? Does that set the right tone about talking about legalizing marijuana when we have an opioid crisis and a huge drug issue that's going on that still has to be tackled state by state, but particularly in Illinois? We
need to address the opioid issue. It's very much related to the mental health issue, by the way. So when you don't fund a budget the way that Governor Rauner hasn't, when you don't fund it and many of those mental health services and substance abuse services go away, you have an increase of crime, you have a burgeoning opioid epidemic in the state. I mean, we can prevent those things, but again, the governor doesn't seem interested in any prevention. He just wants to destroy government and doesn't understand what the cost of doing that really is.
Last area would be education, of course, and we saw some education reform that was passed by the legislature last year. But we also see that areas of higher education, as I said, Western Illinois University, they're seeing losses in student population. When you're talking about building a state and you're seeing that young people are leaving the state, what do you do to change that?
You have hit the nail on the head. If you want economic growth in this state, we've got to keep our kids who want to go to college in the state. We want to ask them to stay in the state. But when you're Bruce Rauner, you're cutting university funding, you've got faculty leaving the state, kids don't know whether they're going to get their MAP grants. Guess what? Parents and kids get together and say, maybe we shouldn't stay in the state. Maybe you should go to school outside of the state. And you know what happens when 72,000 kids leave the state, as has happened under Bruce Rauner? You know what happens? 70 or 80% of them don't come back to the state. And that is an economic loss for the state. It's also a loss of our children in the state. So I want to invest in higher education because it's good for our economy. Why do companies want to move to Illinois? Why do people want to invest in Illinois, if ever? And the answer has been historically because we have the most talented, educated, dedicated workforce in the nation. But you've got to continue to invest in that in the K-12 system by putting vocational training back, and you've got to invest in our higher education system by making sure that Western Illinois is able to attract students and has the programs necessary to give those students the education that they're looking for.
Well, as you know, primary election, there's been ads, negative ads on both sides. I mean, the person that runs the negative ad says it's painting the other candidate and your truth tellers, and the other side cries foul. It's getting tough right now before the primary. If you win the primary, do you think it's going to be equally tough coming into the general election? And may it be off-putting once again to so many of those people who just say, oh, it's politics, I'm done with it?
Well, the challenge I think we're going to see in the general election is that Bruce Rauner does not have a record to run on. He's done nothing for the state. So he's only got one option, and that's to trash Democrats, to run negative ads against Democrats. It's the only thing he can do, possibly to give himself a shot at winning. He's got a 30%, in fact, lower than a 30% approval rating. I think I saw the other day a 26% approval rating, one of the lowest among all Republican governors in the country. So could he win re-election? It's possible. Remember that Donald Trump won election and he had about a 30% approval rating in the country. So it's possible. But here's the thing. We've got to make sure that we're building up the infrastructure for Democrats to win in 2018. And that's what I'm focused on. Beating Bruce Rauner is a high priority because that will allow us to enact policies that are really good for working families across the state. I want to put Springfield back on the side of working families, and that means focusing on those kitchen table issues like lowering the cost of health care, like expanding educational opportunities, making college more affordable, and then raising wages and creating jobs. Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate it. I really appreciate it. J.B. Pritzker, the Democratic nominee for Illinois governor. We hope to talk one-on-one with Republican Governor Bruce Rauner in the weeks ahead. Up next, veterans in the military, but not in the job market. A boot camp for those who served and are now looking for work. But first, Laura Adams is ready to spring into action with some great events that you might want to consider when you're ready to go out and about.
This is Out and About for March 19th through 25th. Hi, I'm Laura Adams. It's time for the Flower and Garden Show at the QCCA Expo Center. Or take the plunge to support the Special Olympics at the Rock Island Polar Plunge at Jumers Casino in Rock Island. It's the best tacos in town for a very good cause at the Moline Vikings Club to support Stand Down for Homeless Vets. Celebrate spring at Nahant Marsh's Spring Celebration and Eco Egg Hunt. Kids 9 to 12 are invited to the Flashlight Easter Egg Hunt at Riverside Park. Bring your own flashlight. Enjoy the 46th Annual Illiwa Orchid Spring Show at the Quad City Botanical Center. And the Easter Lily Show takes place at Vanderveer Botanical Park. Explore the cultures of the world with 4-H at the Martin Luther King Center. And the Muscatine Quilt Weekend Show is taking place at the First Baptist Church in Muscatine. There's still time to catch Venus and Fur, the Tony Award-winning dark comedy at the QC Theater Workshop, while the bright and bouncy musical Catch Me If You Can finishes its run at the Quad City Music Guild. Or tumble down the rabbit hole with Ballet Quad Cities in a fun-filled fantasy adventure as they present Alice in Wonderland at the Adler Theater. Plus, the Black Box Theater in downtown Moline present the musical Clue the Musical, where the audience chooses whodunit. For more information, visit WQPT.org.
Thank you, Laura. Getting a job is not easy, and companies know finding the right worker is not easy either. But there's an untapped workforce out there that knows a few things about duty and professionalism. For the third year, Western Illinois University Quad Cities, Eastern Iowa Community Colleges, Blackhawk College, and St. Ambrose University are joining forces to hold the Eastern Iowa Western Illinois Veterans Conference. It's coming up Tuesday at Blackhawk College. And joining us now are two of the organizers, Blackhawk College Coordinator of Veterans Services, Marceia Duhn, and St. Ambrose University Coordinator of Veterans Recruitment and Services, Natalie Woodhurst. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Let me start with you, Marceia, because why is this critically important at this time? Because you would think that most veterans already know how to get a job. They know what to do. They've been in the military. They're great employees. Employers would want to snatch them up.
Well, it's a little harder than that for the veterans to find those jobs. First, they have to work their way through all of the steps that they have to take to find them. They're coming from a very rigid, very organized organization, and they're having to go into a workforce where they may not be prepared exactly for what they need to do. They may not have a resume. You don't usually get a resume when you're in the military. Yeah. And they have to have their resumes, they have to know where to look for the work, and this is where we come in, where we're going to be able to help them kind of navigate their way through that workforce.
Well, Natalie, in so many ways, I think you just wanted this to be a one-stop shop. I mean, something that really can answer all the questions, plus great networking for vets as well.
Absolutely, and it's a little more than just the career aspects too. We're kind of bringing in some mental health stuff as well to help them deal with other things that may be going on with their personal lives as well as with their professional lives.
Well, at St. Ambrose, you deal with this day in and day out. I mean, what is the biggest concern as far as veterans are concerned when it comes to getting into higher education or getting into the job market? I mean, are they leaving the military and then just kind of adrift, that there's not a good way to help them to move on in their civilian life?
It can be quite difficult. There are things in place, the TAPS program, transition assistance, when they get out of the military. But a lot of times when it's time to get out, they're just ready to be out.
Yeah,
and so
understandably.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you almost need to decompress, I would think, in some ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then navigating the whole Veterans Affairs thing as far as getting their benefits. VA benefits can be very confusing, and the application process can be daunting. So that's where people like myself and Marceia can come in and help them kind of navigate those waters.
And Marceia, you said that this conference really came up with you guys sitting around a table saying, look, we need to do something, let's do this.
Yeah, we went out for coffee, or tea for me, and we were just sitting around talking, saying, the Quad Cities has a large population of veterans. What can we do to help? And what can we do at our educational institutions to help them? And we started writing notes down on a little napkin, and that's where the whole idea for having this conference came up. And it's unique in this country.
It is
because
unique,
we
yeah.
have the 4 colleges or organizations working together to bring veterans together and to bring not just our veteran students, but veterans in general.
Well, walk me through this Tuesday morning, because it's basically 2 different events, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. What's going on in the morning?
Right. Military 101 is going to be a workshop. It's a 2.5-hour workshop, and that's primarily for educators, administrators who are not military oriented. They have not been through the military, and try to help them kind of understand what the veterans are going through so that they can better serve them in their classrooms and in their colleges.
Well, Natalie, this is kind of right up your alley. I mean, what is it that you think that other educators don't understand, or other administrators and recruiters just don't get?
I think a lot of things with just dealing with the military. A lot of military individuals don't want to identify as a veteran sometimes. When it comes to higher education, they kind of just want to be another college student. So it's nice to kind of educate those educators on how they should kind of treat these veterans and where to kind of step off and let them have their own, deal with things in their own way, and try to get people to be a little accommodating for certain things they might face.
That kind of surprises me that you say that, because so many veterans are rightly proud of their service, but you're saying in some cases they want to really embrace the civilian aspect of their lives right now?
I think they do. I think particularly in a situation like higher ed, where they're surrounded by civilians essentially, and oftentimes much younger civilians, and they don't want to face those questions that people might ask that a lot of their own older generations maybe would never think to ask,
right.
But they don't want to face questions that may come up.
And when I talk about the community college in a moment, but I want to stick with this for a moment too, because the university, you have more non-traditional students. You have a lot of traditional students. I would never really think about that, as that a military person may have gone from high school straight into service, and almost that part of their life is here, compartmentalized, and they've skipped this period of time where other high school graduates have already entered, secondary education.
Right. That's essentially exactly what happens. They just kind of skip that natural transition into college that a lot of students have, and they've their life is abruptly changed by the military, and then to come back to try to swing back into it, it's not always quite as easy as I think some people think it could be.
Exactly, and Marceia, at the community college level, I mean, you have so many non-traditional students that it might be a little bit easier. Except
that they have a different worldview. The people that they went to high school with may not be able to relate with what they have experienced.
Very true.
And so even though they are non-traditional students, and we do serve a lot of non-traditional students, they're a different group of non-traditionals.
Now, in the afternoon, once again, the opening ceremony for the afternoon starts at about 12:30, and then you've got, as you were saying, it's more than just jobs. You're talking about mental health. One of the things is mind, body, and soul.
Yes.
Because you really do have to come back to become a full person in our society once you leave the military. Now that you're not a full person, but let's
Right.
be honest, the military is a big chunk of you, of
Yes.
your identity.
Yes, absolutely. And things like the mind, body, soul. It's just kind of opening up dialogue and have a natural discussion with people that are veterans, and it's being led by a veteran, and so he's very familiar with the things that they've faced. So it'll be a great way to discuss these things in an open fashion.
And I do want to mention that you have a keynote speaker who's very inspirational and knows a thing or two about the military and post-military life.
Yes, we have Jathan
Shaquin.
I never can pronounce his name right. But he is from Iowa, and he has been a combat veteran. And he's just a really unique person. I think everybody's going to really like listening to him.
What's the message that you're going to hear?
It's our whole theme is kind of success through bridging the gap. So he has, he epitomizes that success. He was a Navy SEAL, and now he's the director for the Veterans Center at Iowa State. So he's just made that transition very successfully, and now he gives back so much to other veterans. We're very excited to have him and have him share his story and how he did that.
So Marceia, who do you want to see at this conference? I mean, it's veterans, obviously, but it's more than just veterans. I mean, who else would really benefit from this?
For the morning session, I'd like to see a lot of educators, and for the afternoon session, more veterans, because our afternoon sessions really are geared for the veterans.
And you also have, basically, is it a job fair, or I don't want to call it a job fair, but you have an event that really helps as far as the career building goes.
We do. We're going to have a Veterans Career Boot Camp.
Thank you, that's
yes.
what it is.
Yep, the Veterans Career Boot Camp, and we'll have people from the career services from all the colleges involved, and they'll be there to help with interview tips, resume tips, helping how to set those up, because it's a little different when you have a military background writing a resume. So.
Well, let's be honest, if you're looking for a job, or if you're looking for a better job, any way you can hone those skills, I mean, because you're going to help as far as interviewing techniques go, maybe cover letters, maybe those resumes, and what you don't know might hurt you more than what you do know.
Absolutely. And we'll be able to direct them into other places where they can go and seek further assistance beyond just this conference. It won't have to end that day. So.
Registration for the conference going on right now?
It is, and the other thing is that we have the job fair at Blackhawk on Thursday, the 29th, so this is preparing those veterans for that possibility.
Specifically
too.
for that.
Yeah.
And these job fairs are critically important for how do I say this? It's more than just veterans, but I mean, just
the community.
networking, getting out there and passing around your resume is very important for veterans to do.
Right, it absolutely is. And like you said, it's not just for the veterans, it's for everybody. But the veterans who don't know how to add the information about their service onto their resumes, it's really important. And these representatives from the colleges are going to be able to help them do that.
All right, Marceia, Natalie, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck. Hopefully you get a large attendance. Blackhawk College, of course. We could tell you a little bit more about what is going on, because the Eastern Iowa Western Illinois Veterans Conference is Tuesday. Pre-conference check-in starts at 8:30 at Blackhawk College. The resource fair opens at noon, and the opening ceremony is at 12:30. You can register now by heading to the Eastern Iowa Community College's website. That's eicc.edu. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us. We talk about the issues on the cities.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Sing Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.